Hello and welcome to How-To Diorama with Scale Modelcraft. That's my reader screen, and I go there. Now, we had a problem last week, and I want to show you that it's fixed. So I'm going to do that. So that is my other screen, so I can show you slides. And I don't know what happened. Well, I kind of do know what happened last week. I got a new computer, and it just was a pain. So now I'm going to put these on so I can see what I'm doing. So thank you very much for coming in today. It's been 10 weeks since I started this thing, and I figured it would be kind of fun to go over kind of like what we've done, like a broad look at it. Hey, and we got some folks in today. So Paul was in earlier. Eric's here. Hello. Thank you very much for coming in, Eric. Paul's here early on. Thank you very much, Paul, for coming in. Martin said he can't make it today. Martin Holst. He is typically in these, but unfortunately couldn't make it today. But you know what? That reminds me. I've been reading a fair amount of comments, and a lot of people say, hey, this is my Saturday morning watch. Every Saturday I'll get up and I'll watch the replay. And that's really cool. I think it's fun. I have a great love for Saturday morning programs, from a kid and all that kind of stuff. But it's also just something like, it kind of would set my day, right? I get excited about, as a kid, I get excited about what I saw. I'd like to watch cartoons, or I'd watch, something else because there was like different movie programs on, like Jungle Theater was one growing up, or Harold Lloyd, Laurel and Hardy. These were all like shows that would come on every Saturday, and I'd watch them. And I was like, wow, I just want to do something crazy. So I just think it's fun. So thanks very much for watching the replays. I look at all your comments. So if you have a comment about anything in the show, please just put it down there, replay or today, because that's what it's all about. This week was really crazy. Oh, I've got a few folks here. John is here. Hello, John. Thanks very much for coming in. And Stephen Kessel, hello. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm outside of Seattle. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm up in the mountains, away from Seattle, but really close to Seattle. Like if I want to go, into town or something like that, I can do that. But we're actually in the mountains. Mark Doramus is here. Hello, Mark. How's it going? You're back. You couldn't make it last week, but I'm really glad you're back this week. Thank you very much. And D.R. Shaw, North Bend. I'm so close to North Bend. So thanks very much for coming in, folks. I really don't want to say where I'm at. I'm kind of, I don't know, like privacy and stuff like that, because I really don't have people over to the shop. There's one person that is in the shop, but that comes over and stuff like that. But I really don't have people to the shop because it's at our house. So thanks very much. Stephen Kessel, I live in Marysville. Very, very cool. Hey, Stephen, we should connect because there was a gentleman that moved out here years ago that was a woodworker, and I think he's up in Marysville in that area. So yeah. And D.R. Shaw, thanks very much. I appreciate that. But, do connect with me if you're local or something like that. You can connect with me on the direct message, and love to talk and things like that, So thanks very much. It is, so it's 10 weeks into this diorama, right? Here it is. It's right here. And it has been a lot of fun because if you remember, it all started just with an idea. And I was kind of tossing around two ideas. The first idea was the Livens large gallery flame projector. I'd seen that a few years ago, and I thought it was the coolest thing. It was underground, and I really dig doing underground dioramas. So it was kind of a natural for me. And so it was like, I don't know how to incorporate that because that Livens large gallery flame projector was massive. It was 56 feet long. It was underground. And I think we got some pictures of it here. So let's give that a shot. Why is this not? See, it is working. So I started it July. Fictional story based on a historical account. Subjects are going to be sappers, Anzac miners, and the Livens large gallery flame projector. Well, I went to the wrong one. That is the Livens Large Gallery Flame Projector. And if you look closely, I've kind of just broken it up into three. It's the same image, I just broken it up. You can see how large it is compared to the person's image there. This thing is massive, 56 feet long. It's also actually pretty tall, and it's installed, you know, underground in World War I. It was installed underground in 1916 and deployed 4 times. And what it would do is it would raise through hydraulic, well, not hydraulic, air pressure, not hydraulic pressure, but air pressure would push it up through the soil, the sod, the grass, whatever the field was that they were, you know, no man's land. And then it would spray a mixture of diesel and kerosene onto the German lines. Wow, it was devastating. And a number of years ago, Timeline, it's a British history show, did a show where they reproduced that effect. They didn't really reproduce the machine as we're seeing it here. They didn't reproduce that, but they were able to reproduce like the nozzle and the effect and the amount of fuel this thing put out, because it put out, I get this mixed up, 13 or 1,600 gallons of that mix of diesel and kerosene. So it would do 10-second shots, and it could do 3 of those. So it had 30 seconds. So imagine 30 seconds, high pressurized diesel and kerosene, just, that's a lot of fuel. And it's on fire. Okay. So it's a massive jet of flame, and it would go into the line. So that's what I was basing it on. But I also saw a lot of stuff based on Beneath Hill 60, a great movie, World War I movie, and other World War I movies that I saw underground and digging the tunnels and stuff like that. So that's a fair part of it. So all the guys that are actually digging, all the people that are in the diorama digging and stuff, those are Anzacs. Okay. Captain Livens, who's a real person, Captain William H. Livens, was a British officer, and he developed this gun. I'm going to get dry, and if I start coughing, that's just no good. Oh, excuse me. So Captain Livens develops this, and see, now I got the coughs. It started with this armored car. So at the beginning, I had this in mind, but I wanted to start out with a model. So I had 2 models here, the Lancaster, or the Lanchester. I think it's Lancaster. I don't know. That's why I've been saying it. And the British Rolls-Royce armored car. I had a heck of a time with the Rolls-Royce. It had these PE wheels, and frankly, I really didn't like them at all. They were really hard to build, but I went back and rebuilt, because that hub on the left is what happened when I was trying to build it. And I got frustrated and just kind of, demolished it. But on the right is me, after straightening it all out, redoing it. I had to modify some parts. I had to build some extra stuff, but I got the wheels figured out. So that's that rear wheel. It's all figured out. Well, at the end of the day, those wheels, I didn't like them. The next model was this. So this is the Lancaster, and this is from Copper State Models. And I just like these wheels so much better. They look really nice. And I think the spokes and the wheels, they have a depth that the PE didn't, that photo etch wheel, it just didn't have it. So this is the one that I decided to go with. So once I was done with that, I dove into pink foam here, and I kind of figured out. Now, if you look here, you see I only had 5 layers of pink foam here to start with. I added a layer next, down the road. Once I had it kind of all blocked in, this is what it's going to look like. Then I started to carve it. Now, when I'm carving this stuff, you can shape this pink foam pretty easily. You can cut it with a knife. I like to use a rotary tool, but the caution here is if you're going to use a rotary tool, you really are going to want to have like a shop vac. I personally have a downdraft table, and so the table has vacuum underneath it and a bunch of holes, and I've showed it on other videos and stuff. And it takes all of the stuff coming off of there into my dust collection system because I have a full woodworking shop. Well, you can do it with just a shop vac, but the whole point is you don't have to go that route. I like that route because it allows me to shape it like this, right? And do contouring and stuff like that. Totally not necessary. You can shape it and then you can add other stuff to it on your own. Don't have to use the rotary tool. But if you do, make sure you have a vacuum because it goes everywhere. When this stuff flakes off and it's dusty and all that kind of stuff, it's very staticky. And so that static is going to get everywhere and it's going to stick to everything. So again, I'm probably just droning on about this, but I don't want you to find out the way I found out because I started working with it the first time. It was in our garage. Boof, nightmare. It was just terrible. So cautionary tale. Great stuff. Cautionary tale. So after I had done that, I kind of sketched in the elements of like the things that are going to be in the trench itself. I started on the top, getting the top kind of figured out. And this is looking down on it. And that's going to be the trench itself. And then I put on the Mod Podge and sanded grout. So now this is something that I use kind of all over. Mod Podge and sanded grout is just fantastic stuff. It is the basis for dirt. And I first learned it. The person that I first saw do it was Andy's Hobby Headquarters, Andy Klein. And it was just a great video. And it gave me the basis for all the dioramas I did after that. The ones that I continue to do today are based on this material. And this material, to me, gives not, you don't put it on and you're done. But what it does do is you put it on and it allows you to have a believable starting point for terrain. Okay. That's the big deal for me. It is not the be all end all. You got to do a lot of stuff, other things to it to make it believable and get the look you want out of it. And it can be contoured and you can add more to it. It's a great receptor for adding things to it because it's a semi-permeable surface and allows you to glue stuff to it pretty readily. And that makes it nice to work with. So we started there. I just use Mod Podge. I brush Mod Podge over it. I sprinkle the sanded grout over it. And then that gives me, and these pictures are kind of funky, but you see the pink, that's no sanded grout. All of the tannish color is sanded grout. And that gave me the basis to start tunneling down below. The next thing I did was, and I've talked about this before, is making the wood to make it believable. Now, this is an old railroader's trick to make balsa wood look like aged barn wood or just old wood, where it kind of gets a grayish patina to it. This is the brilliant stuff that you use. So it is steel wool and distilled vinegar, and you put them together and they sit overnight or longer, and then you get this ebonizing solution. It's vinegar at its base, but what happens is that steel wool kind of breaks down inside there. And I don't know all the chemical things that happen in there, but it works great. You have to strain it really good. And then once it's all strained and you get all the steel wool out of it, the leftover vinegar, you put it on wood and it'll literally change and darken before your eyes. Okay. It's great stuff. I use it on all the wood that I'm going to put in here. Sometimes I paint stuff, but I kind of start with that wood, right? And it just works great. It looks like miniature wood at that point. Now, the kind of woods I use are balsa wood and basswood. Sorry, I'm getting these little things. I got the new update for what is it? Sonoma on my computer. And it recognizes if I do this and it puts up these things. So I got to turn it off because it's a real ridiculous, but it's happening. So anyway, and I've got a couple of comments. So let's talk about those real quick. Flame projector sounds terrifying. Yeah, Eric, I'm telling you, this thing, if you haven't seen it, I'm going to need to put up a a link to the video. I've done it before, but I want to do it again because if you haven't seen the video, it's ridiculous. The gentlemen that are doing it and working with the British military to conduct this experiment, I think it was done in 2015. They're standing, I don't know, 300-400 meters away, and they light this thing off, and they said, I feel this thing, you know, the heat from it. I wish I weren't so close. I mean, that's how much flame and heat and frankly destructive power this thing had. So it's pretty remarkable. Again, it's timeline. If you should look up, if you don't want to wait, you certainly can. Just look up Livens, Livens, Livens large gallery flame projector. You'll find it on the internet. And man, amazing. So, Northwest Scale modelers, do you start with an overall design or just a basic idea? How do you know what to start carving? And that's a great question. And thanks, NWS. And I don't know who's behind that. I know who's in Northwest Scale modelers because it's one of the model clubs that I'm with, but I don't know who's commenting there. So the basic idea is very nebulous when I start. I know I want something underground, and I know I want to have the trench. And so when I'm looking at the trench, if we saw, you know, those pictures, I know I wanted kind of a zigzag look to it. Okay. And here in a moment, we're going to see a picture that really shows that, because, you know, in those trenches, they didn't want a blast to come in and then travel down the trench, because if something explodes inside the trench, if artillery comes in the trench and it's a straight line, that blast, that percussion wave will just go right down the trench. It just wipe people out, you know? So there's a zigzag design. So I had that primarily in mind. I also wanted to have some elevation changes. You know, so many times you see this and it's just this flat, you know, something like that, but that's not the reality of it. There were elevation changes. There were stairs, there were slopes, there was just mud. There was, you know, so these things happen. You're going across the terrain and you try to make it inhabitable to keep your troops safe, but you have to deal with the terrain as well. So I did have that in mind too. Other than that, I just kind of freehanded. I go with the blocking in, like the picture that you saw prior to me going to the going to carving. And I can go back there. Sorry, I should probably do it. Oh, and it's Neil from Northwest Scale Modelers. So I'm going to go back here real quick. So right there is my blocking in. And by blocking in, I'm just literally like building blocks. I'm kind of saying this is the general shape. And you can see that zigzag up at the top there for the, you know, what I want for the general look. But then as I go on, I kind of refine it. And here's where I start my carving. And then further, I bring some more carving in. I do some of that because it's not going to be, you know, dead flat like tarmac or like a road. There's going to be a lot of contouring in it and wear and things like that. And there's that elevation change you can see. And then finally, this is the down look. Now, once I get this stuff on it, that doesn't mean I'm done contouring. I can still add stuff. And that's one of the fun things about this, the sanded grout and things like that. I can literally put piles of sanded grout and then just soak it, and I got a pile, you know, of whatever. I can add things to it. Anyway, it's just great stuff. So we'll look at that. And folks, as I'm going along, and as we're recapping and we're talking about this, if you've got a question, certainly ask, please. The whole point of my channel is to show you something that I'm extremely passionate about. You know, this is all I do. Well, it's not all I do, of course, but this is like my job. I just am able to now build dioramas all the time. And I've been doing it for a while, and I think I'm getting okay at it. So what I want to do is I just want to share all the things that I've learned about building dioramas, because I like to bring in some of my other experiences into it. That's a huge part of it. I was a woodworker for 30 years. So I've got a lot of different experience to bring into model building. Also allows me to do a lot of woodworking in my diorama building. So that's apparent. But I also like fabricating things. So I like to show you how I fabricate things. I like to show you maybe some unique solutions. And I also like to build tools. I'm a huge one to make your own jig or make your own tool to make the job that you're doing either repeatable, so you can do it multiple times and get the same result as best as you possibly can, but also to make it easier. Making tools is a lot of fun. And I think sometimes it gives you the ability to go ahead and take your diorama further than you originally thought. So that's what I'm doing here. So yeah, please ask questions. I love it. I'm going to go back to the slide because this is that wood after it's been treated in the solution. Remember, I kind of jump around because that's just where my brain is. But I started out with some distilled vinegar, put the steel wool in it. It soaks overnight or maybe a couple of days. And then I strain it. I get this. It's an ebonizing solution. The reddish color, when you do it correctly, you get kind of it's more clear and a little bit of a grayish tint to it. That's what it looks like when you first do it. But over time, if air gets to it, because there's iron in it, it'll rust. It's oxidizing. So what you're looking at is that vinegar is oxidized in here. So it's still going to give me a grayish color, but if I put too much, it'll turn reddish gray. So yeah, it's great stuff. So I just thought I would talk about that. So when you first do it, it looks like this. And I'm using different woods in here. I'm using balsa and basswood. And what that allows me to do is make different shades of wood too, different densities. Here's me having them cut up. And then the right-hand side, that's what balsa wood looks like prior to using the solution, which I've done all the way to the left. Now, all the way to the left, that is dowel. And so you see that dowel, that's made from a different kind of wood. Sometimes it's poplar, all kinds of different woods they use for dowel. Well, that dowel is denser than the other wood, and so it doesn't accept it in the same way. That's why there's different color shades on that. The other thing to remind, or I should say, about this solution, what it's actually doing to change the color is it's attacking the tannins. It's not attacking it, I guess. It's reacting with the tannins in the wood. So woods with higher amounts of tannin, like oak, has a lot of tannins in it, it'll turn darker. And I've done this to different effects and stuff like that. I built, again, being a woodworker, I built this beautiful piano bench years ago, and I got like a black, like my chair black, finished with this stuff. And that's what you're able to do with this stuff. So it's really cool stuff. Anyway, let's get back to this. I got some comments. I don't want to miss any comments. So Eric says, have you had any aha moments so far or discovered a new way, faster way to do something? Absolutely. And that's great. Thank you, Eric, because that happens almost every time I'm working on stuff. And the reason is, maybe this is weird, I don't have a great memory to remember how I built something last time. That maybe sounds funny. I know it because I've progressively gotten better. Okay, so that's how it works. But I don't specifically remember how I did something the last time I did it. Does that make sense? So each time I do something, it's an experiment. I don't necessarily go in. I'm not the kind of person that follows the same process every single time. I know that vinegar solution is going to do what I want to do, but how much I use, all that kind of stuff, that's new every time. Now, maybe that's for everybody, and my method isn't as different, but I do tend to try to continuously experiment. I'm that person that likes to see, no matter how many times I've done something, is there a different way? I'm also the cook in our family. Mrs. Modelcraft doesn't cook, though she can, she's, but I'm the cook. I sometimes mess up favorite recipes because I'm like, what's this going to do? And I'll just throw it in there. And that can be very frustrating for people, but I'm just that kind of person. So I'll take something that, I'm cooking and everybody loves and blah, blah, and then I'll change it. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's not. Well, most times it's better, but sometimes it's not. I like that method because if I get too set into how I'm doing something, I might miss that new way of doing it, right? I've always been best idea wins, right? Just the best idea out there wins. So I'm always looking for new ways to do it, and trying to figure out new ways to do stuff. I hope that was kind of a answer, because I do. Specifically, something new that I figured out on this one. I think some stuff will come up and I can comment it, Eric. So please remind me if I don't remember. Link says, hello, Link. Thanks very much for coming on. Thanks for sharing. I love your work. Thanks very much, Link. Link has been on for before and for a long time. And he'll contact me throughout the week and stuff like that and say hi and look at stuff. So it's really nice to see you. I love it when folks talk to me during the week while I'm working. And by talk, I'm saying commenting and stuff on video stuff, because I just get back to them and it's fun. Sometimes if I don't get right back to you, please know that it's just because I'm working and it's not because I'm ignoring you. And Neil says, I had to convert a 9-cylinder radial engine to 7 cylinders. A jig was essential. Yeah, because you've got to get everything indexed at 7 points around a 360. And there may be points where you don't, like at the engine bottom mount. I built an Enzani engine. It's out of wood years ago, but it was the same kind of a deal. And it had 3 cylinders, and you've got to make sure that you get them exactly right, because your eye is really good and it'll pick that stuff out in a second if it's not symmetrically placed. Like in 3, your eye can tell if something's 3 and everything's equal pretty darn easy. So yeah, jigs are fantastic. Thanks, Neil. So let's go back to these here slides and let's see what else I was doing. So after I got that wood kind of ready, why are you not doing what I want you to do? There, you're doing it now. Then I just started building. Now here, I'm doing different things I've seen in movies and I've seen in other people doing. They do either 1 or 2 or whatever. And what I'm talking about is the shoring. They use maybe not all the stuff that's available. Meaning that there were times that they had wood for shoring. There are times when they had posts. There are times when they had brand new boards. There's times where they had to repair it, and so they had old boards. There's times where they had the corrugated stuff. All these different scenarios. It is a used world. I love the George Lucas thought when he first did Star Wars. He talked about this is a used world. It's a used universe. So things have been used. There's time. There's character. Something happened. It had to be repaired. I kind of look at that with everything I do, because look, when Star Wars came out, I was 13 years old, kind of right there in the sights of the producers of that movie, and everything about it kind of really influenced me. Another one that's a huge influence is Lord of the Rings. Oh my gosh, how to make a video, how to set up a scene, because when I'm doing a scene in one of my dioramas, I'm thinking of a scene in a movie. I'm trying to set a place that is so detailed you believe people are there and doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? So a lot of that stuff is from Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and the special features that go with those movies. I love those. I have watched Star Wars I don't know how many times in my lifetime, because I've always had the VHS or the DVD or the digital or whatever. Heck, I even had a laser disc, the big laser disc. The point being, these things have influenced me my entire life, and a lot of it goes in here. So if you're looking for that kind of influence or some of that kind of background to help you produce stuff, well, certainly I'm here, but those are great places to find it too. Those are wonderful resources to learn the things that I'm trying to also convey to you. So there you go. We had some more folks here. John says, I love the woven sticks they use at times to shore up the trench walls. I like that effect too. And pardon me, I almost used that, but I thought in scale, because it can be done a lot of different ways. The last time I did it, I did bamboo skewers, and then I think I still have some. I did bamboo skewers, and then I split them. So kind of like splitting a rail post. So I had thinner pieces. It just didn't look right, because that's not what they used. They used wicker, or not wicker. I know it was part of it's like a willow. Was it willow? I don't know. But there's a very European, British, French thing that they weaved with, and these were very good at weaving, but they used a relatively uniform size. But it wasn't uniform always, and every one that I've seen someone reproduce in a diorama has been one size. They find this material, they find that material, and they're all uniform. It's not quite. And so when I do that kind, because I tried it before, when I do that kind of wall, because I'll do another World War One certainly. I want to find a varying size. I thought grasses, tall grasses would work great. Well, the problem is when you weave them, they collapse, and of course the wood doesn't. So yeah, I got to figure something out there. But I haven't figured it out yet. But thanks very much, Sean. I love those too. I think those are great. But I do like the fact that you try different things, and it's like you said, it's been repaired. We had this material then, we don't have it now, but this is what we got, so we put that in there. So I like to see a mix of stuff, new, old, different, all that kind of stuff. I think it's very helpful. So as I went through and started building and putting these in, I also did sandbags. And sandbags, there's going to be a lot more sandbags, but the sandbags help me establish where things are, just how I'm going to put stuff, because the sandbags are needed in certain places for certain things. Here, for instance, they're trying to basically shore up the sides so that the mud stays in the middle of the walkway. Well, one of the things that I did here, and you can kind of see it in this picture, is I put plastic wrap down first on the basis, or on the base of what is going to be the bottom of the trench. And by putting that plastic wrap and then putting my sandbags on top of it, and my sandbags, by the way, are air dry clay. It's not DOS, it's Sculpey air dry clay. By putting it on that, letting it dry, then I can remove that top piece. And by removing that top piece, it makes it like a component. Like even right now, it is so much easier to work on the diorama when I can remove this piece. And that's what happened. Now, one of the things that I did after taking it off of there, after taking it off of that plastic, I did put Mod Podge on the bottom of these. So I soaked these guys pretty good. Sometimes they don't stick completely. And so that just helps them, stick to this. And so they're always going to be stuck to that. Once they're painted and stuff, it'll look real natural. But that's one of the things that I try to do with my dioramas, is keep them in a modular form so that as I'm building and as I'm adding details, it's just a lot easier to get to it. And I can light it properly. It's like the behind the scenes. You just take this off and put your wiring in, put it back on, and there you go. I'd like to say Bob's your uncle, but I don't 100% understand Bob's your uncle. So once I learn. Okie dokie. Eric says, sorry, I'm trying to get in here. Yeah, John, I agree with you. The woven sticks are a great look. Yeah, I totally agree. Hey, Go For It Painting is here. Hello, Go For It Painting. Thank you very much for coming in. So next, after I got the wood and stuff here done and sandbags, that kind of established what I was going to do on the surface. Now, previously we had somebody asking about, planning, I think it was Neil, planning what it looks like. Well, this is one of the things that I do. I get down real low at eye level to the model. There's another technique where it's really important to get down eye level as the observer, right? But I also want to get eye level as the people in it so that I can see where things are proportionally and placed wise, because stuff looks different there. So I try to do a lot of that while I'm building. And this is an example of that, I'm getting down real low. I'm seeing what it's doing. And that is what I was doing to make sure that I had the sandbags in the right place. This is what you're going to see if you're actually walking in it at 35th scale. Hey, and thank you very much, Go For It Painting. This is something that I constantly forget. Hit that like button. Thanks very much, Go For It Painting. Folks, I really appreciate it if you like it. Just give me a thumbs up. That's really super nice. And comments, of course, are great too if you're in the replay. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Go for it painting. John also helps me with that stuff because I'm just totally lost on it. But anyway, let's get back to our slides. Here's another view from the opposite direction. Here's where the terrain is going away from you because there's a downslope there. So there's a little bit different look here. Now, once I got the top done, now it was trying to go, or time to go, subterranean. Here you can see I hope my cursor is coming across here. Here I added a level because it wasn't quite deep enough for what I wanted to do. Oscar's going bonkers, so I think he's going to join us here. I'm going to bring him up on my lap because he is just making a lot of noise. Come on, buddy. Oh, my goodness gracious. He is by the door. It is like super sunny out, and it's been raining for a week. So Oscar is really mad. He wants to go outside, but he can't. Not until we're done because he can't go outside by himself. You got to walk him. He's 19. Okay, so back on track, folks. I started carving here. Now, when I'm trying to figure this out, and this was a good question like Neil was asking before, do you have a plan or something like that? No, I don't, honestly. I literally said I want a vertical shaft to go down to hit all these areas. And I'm just kind of roughly working my way through it. After that, and not everything's been cut in yet, after that, to help distinguish the sides of the diorama and stuff like that, I love to paint them black. It helps me see and get an idea as to what it's going to look like inside, or when it's done, not inside, but it helps distinguish the inner layers and then just the surface that's supposed to be like, a cutaway. Here's the other, the same point about that modulation. Modulation? No, that's a wrong use of that word because that means something else in model building. But the modular design of this, because none of these are glued together yet. So even the one that you see right here behind me, this can all be taken apart. It allows me to get in, just like I was saying before, it allows me to get in and do stuff without like destroying something or, I can't reach it. Though there are times I have to do that because it's modular. It makes it so much easier to work on. If I have to really get in and do something without that, I've done that before. That's why I'm doing it this way. You can really mess up some things that you've done. And so, yeah, it's just a real good time saver. So we are going to look at next. Once I had all those places cut out, I started building these little structures. And so these are the inner rooms. Now, how I'm building these, I'm really kind of referencing timber framing. That's what they were doing. And when I first started looking at this stuff, I had an idea from movies and TV and fiction and stuff like that in America. When I think of a mine, I think I'm going to see rock and dirt walls, right? And I'm going to see some shoring and some posts and stuff, but I'm going to see the walls, okay? Well, come to find out, that's not how it was. In France, when they were digging the tunnels, number one, they weren't like old Earl that's a miner, just I'm going to figure out how to mine. They would just do it, maybe not knowing how to mine. In World War I, they found that this was something that they needed. And once it was identified, they recruited actual miners. Okay, so these are people working in the mining profession that were recruited to do this specific job. Certainly they had help from other people, other military units that were formed, and people could join if they had some kind of experience that related to mining. But the primary thing was they wanted actual miners. Oscar's going to go down now. So they wanted actual miners. So these weren't kind of slapdash put together. These structures were structurally built for the terrain, for the kind of mud, for the kind of soil they were digging through. And it was loose soil. It wasn't rock. There may have been some rock, but it was loose soil from what I've seen. So that's why you had to have the sides of these tunnels shored up. You had to have this shoring to hold the mud from collapsing in from the sides, not just the rock collapsing down over you, like the Western and American mines I was used to seeing, like a coal mine. In a coal mine, you're going through your rock and things like that. That's not what this is. So there's a lot of structure in there, and these folks knew what they were doing. So everything is pretty even. It's not cobbled together. These things are done well. Same thing here. This is a turntable. When I went around the corner, and I got to go forward to show you this a little bit better. This is the corner of one of the tunnels. And to go around a corner, I needed something to show that, we're hauling stuff out, because there were rails in there, because when you get this dirt in these sandbags, it's pretty heavy stuff. So they had to basically, as they're digging, fill sandbags super quiet. That's the other thing. They weren't using pickaxes. They weren't driving stuff. They weren't doing any of that. They were literally digging sometimes with a hand shovel or a spade, a hand spade, a little tiny gardening hand spade, because geophones were, I don't know, I think they were invented at that time, but a geophone basically was a listening device that you could put inside a tunnel, and then you could listen for other tunnelers, be it your own folks or German tunnelers coming your direction, because both tunneling came there. Now, by doing different listening posts, and I do have a listening post in here, by the way. We haven't really talked about it much, but it's in there. You could triangulate. They could mark the progress. They could mark the direction. They could mark the depth. They could do all of this. And this was, newfound, coupled with known technology to be able to do this kind of stuff. But they were able actually to map where other people were. So they had to be so quiet that they were sometimes digging by hand. Yeah, very, very difficult. But they were still shoring this up, and they had a very, very good system for keeping these tunnels from collapsing. Not to say it didn't happen. It did, most certainly, but they really knew their craft. I could have maybe said that at the beginning. I don't know. So anyway, so I'm going to go back up a little bit. This is that turntable that I built. It is meant to have a small piece of track on it. So right here, and it does turn properly in there. And then this is the tunnel. This became the tunnel structure. It is bigger. It's not made like all the tunnels. There were very, very specialized pieces of wood built for tunnels and tunneling. But this is a special tunnel because it was taller. It needed to be taller because of what was being placed in it. This was a 56-foot long machine that had to be put in here. So that's basically the diorama with all of the underground elements, all of the wood, all of the tunnels, everything right there. Next, after I got the structure built, it was all about details, and details are really a multi-level, multi-phase, I guess you would call it. And it's like you would think. I kind of start with the big details, right? The first thing was the room. Then I go for like the furniture. Then I go from the furniture, what's on the furniture. Then I go to the walls. Then I go to the floor. And I just kind of try to keep building more and more depth. Well, one of the pieces of depth was I needed a brick backstop in where they're testing. So there's a testing lab for this flamethrower. So to build this backdrop, we're going to look at that in a second, but I'm just going to show you about this brick. So I bought this brick. I did not make this. I usually make everything, but I bought this brick, and it's really nice. As you can see, a fair amount of it came, but they're perfect. And that's a little weird, right? I like that used world thing. Well, these bricks are perfect. And so what I did was I put a piece of wax paper on my bench. I lined them up against this wood so I could get them all stacked up. I was going to do some depth, so I've got some on the ends there to look like it's thicker. And then when I had these all built up, I just put Mod Podge and water on. And the whole thing just glued. They're porous. they're semi-porous. And so they just sucked up that Mod Podge, and that thing became like a single brick, like a single thing. It glued together like nobody's business. If you wanted to take a piece off, the brick would break before the glue did. So it was pretty wild. Okay, so back to this. I put some sandbags on the brick as well. And again, what this is looking inside the testing lab in the bottommost portion of the diorama. And this testing lab is for testing the Livens large gallery flame projector. So I needed something that the flamethrower could shoot into and not destroy the place. Now, there's a lot of stuff to talk about there, like ventilation, smoke, and blah, blah, blah. But we'll get there. I'm not done. So the next thing was more details. I love chalkboards, and specifically, I love chalkboards because of the opening scenes of Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. When they're explaining to the two government agents, one of which is Porkins, from Star Wars. So they're trying to explain to these guys, and Indy is drawing on the chalkboard. Well, that's what this is. I wanted to build my own, like that. And I love chalkboards, and they're super easy to make. I did a video on how to make them, and it's not chalkboard paint. It's flat paint, flat black paint. That's it. I put it on really thin plywood, spray it on there, and then I use real chalk. I had a piece here. I don't know what the heck I did with it, but I just use real chalk. And once I get a little bit of real chalk, just kind of put on the flat black. Then I take white paint, Tamiya, flat white paint, and I just draw on it. There's a picture coming up, but it came out great, and I love it. And it looks like a real chalkboard. Then here is the Livens gun. So I scratch built the Livens gun, and what this is, and you can kind of see here in the scratch built form, is the fuel comes in from the lower left. It goes up that kind of an S curve pipe, and then it does flow up to the top, and then that's where it sprays out. The other little gears and mechanisms on here, what they do is they control the height, how far it goes up. They're basically, again, it's air pressure doing it, not hydraulic, not water pressure. So it's not hydraulic pressure, but it's air pressure, CO2 pressure, pushing this thing up through the soil. And then you've got a handle to stop that action. And then you can swivel it back and forth to kind of, shoot left and right. So yeah, pretty devastating thing. This is in 1/35 scale. It's, I don't know, about 2.5 inches tall. Oh boy, Simon's here. Hello, Simon. Hey, Bill, great project. Really enjoyed your progress, educational stuff. This always fun to learn about the subject matter and the research as well as the model itself. Thanks very much, Simon. I appreciate it, sir. If you haven't seen Barbarossa Models, please do. It's like one of my first influences, and I love Barbarossa Models website. It's just the best. This is Simon, and he does great stuff. Always impressed with your enthusiasm and skills, sir. Thank you, Simon. That's really, really nice. I appreciate that. So after building this guy, I need to go over here. Sorry. After building this guy, painted him up, and well, I haven't painted him. Here's the primer. I like to get him at primer, but there you can see the scale. So that's a 1/35 World War I. I don't even know if I'll use him. I may, but he needs to be repainted. But he's just like my scale person. And that's another thing. When I'm doing this stuff, I've got, like the scale ruler. Talked about that a fair number of times. This is a really, really nice tool, but I honestly don't use it too much. So this is a 1/35 scale ruler, and there's other scales on there. But if I really am questioning something, here's one, size of a tree. Size of a tree is a really difficult one to kind of judge, because this looks right, that but this really helps with that, because that's like a 35-foot tree right there. Is that 30 feet? Yeah, goes to 35 feet. But a 35-foot tree, unless it's a pine, doesn't really look that good. But if you're outside and you're looking at a yard and you're looking at a tree, you're like, that's a 35-foot tree. So again, those things get wonky. That's helpful. But when I'm just trying to do something that's going to be right next to a character, right next to a figure in my diorama, I really think it's important to utilize the figure, because I've built stuff before where it's all perfect per scale and it just doesn't look right. You got to build to the eye, right? At least I do. You don't have to, but that's what I do. I want to build to the eye. So I like to do this. That gives me a good feel for how big something needs to be. And for me, more readily than using the scale. Okay, so that's me. Next. This is what it looks like in the testing bay. And you can see in the background, there's that chalkboard, and there's the stop. Here's just some more things like, again, detail, adding layers of detail. This is actually a distillation machine. Here is the large chalkboard, and you notice the stuff that looks like it's erased in the background, that is all from real chalk. I'm just using real chalk on it. Then I move to a paintbrush. I use a 4-aught or sometimes a 10-aught paintbrush to paint these, just with Tamiya, XF2. Yep, XF2 is the white flat Tamiya, and I think it works great. I'm really happy with it. I tried to do like chemical formulations. This lab, and we're going to see pictures at the end here. This particular lab is supposed to be Captain Livin's personal laboratory where he's working on the fuel, because that's like a big part of it. It's a mix of kerosene and diesel. Well, how much diesel? How much kerosene? Was that his first go? Was he just like, those are the two we're going to use? Did he have other chemicals? Well, that's what I'm supposed to show, or I'm trying to show in his personal lab. And that's why these are supposed to be chemical compounds and things like that. Here are some books. I had to have reference books. It's just styrene cut down, all different shapes, all different, well, the shape is book shaped, but all different sizes. I thought that was really important. This is his little laboratory desk where he's running some chemical experiments. And then this is what those two look like with all of the stuff not put in yet. Then I started this. Now, and this is really at the point where I'm at. This one is not where I'm at, but I'm at another point just like this where, I'm adding all that little detail. Specifically like, okay, if I'm at my workbench right now, right? This is where I model right here. And if I look under my workbench, there's a whole bunch of crud underneath there. Well, that's pretty much the same for everybody. And if you think about it, in these dioramas, you don't see a lot of that. Well, I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to fill in all that little stuff like under your desk or in the corner or whatever. So that's what this kind of stuff is. These are parts, that laboratory, that testing lab, not the chemical lab, but the testing lab, because there's 2 labs in this thing. This one needs a whole bunch of parts because they're building this big old piece of machine. So these are those parts. And then I just build those different parts. Just they're all scrap parts from other models and stuff. So they look very arcane, but that's great for what I want. The next thing was to build the fuel cell for the Livin's flame projector. And that's what this is. And it's super simple. All I'm doing here is I'm taking large tubing, not too large, maybe 5/8 of an inch large styrene tubing. I cut it off. I put ends on it. They're tanks. The bottom one, I cut some flanges, cutting out a circle, cutting out the inside, slipped them over that large piece. That is the large collector underneath the fuel tanks. The 3 things on top are the fuel tanks. Here, you have to join all those together. Those little things that you look, they're clamps. The repeated around the flanges, those are clamps. They actually had to, put this thing inside of a tunnel. So it had to be basically broken down into manageable parts. And even those were big, but that's why you see everything is sectional. And Neil says, isn't there a lot of wood close by in the testing lab? This is a flamethrower after all. Yes, you're absolutely correct, Neil. And I'll show you. I did some like flame protection, like some corrugated steel in there. It looks pretty cool. I'll show you here in a minute. John says this will be a really fun diorama for a stats list, since it will have hundreds of pieces of parts. Love all the details. Thanks very much, John. And and that's the deal. The more detail I can put into it, I'm not trying to confuse the eye. And there's a point in which you can do that, right? You can confuse the eye so you don't see things that make sense. So I got to be careful. There's a little bit of a balance that I have to make. I want enough stuff in there so it looks a little bit cluttered. It's been used. They're doing stuff, right? But it can't be so cluttered and so confused that your eyes get lost in it. And then I don't see anything. It's the forest through the trees kind of analogy. You can't see the forest because you're looking at the trees. Well, if you back up, you can see, well, there's a forest there. Well, I want you to be able to tell it's a lab, but I also want you to pick out individual items inside there that support that, right? In one of them, we're doing chemical stuff. So I need chemical looking processing, blah, blah, blah. And the other stuff, I'm building a machine. So I want things that go toward building a machine. So it's those little pieces that I'm putting in there. There's little details that help support the idea that this is what it is. You get the idea when you first look at it. And then as you look closer, those are confirmations of what the thing is that you're looking at. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. But that's what I'm doing. Visual overload. You're absolutely correct, Neil. What happened? It just blanked out. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. It is visual overload. And it's like what people say for pilots. There's just too much for the pilot. Oh, I think it was my camera kind of blanked out. I got to turn it back on because it just kind of went wonky. Let's see what happened there. So there we go. I turned on and off my camera, and that should come back in a minute. So let's see what our next slide is. This is in the background. You'll see this is the kind of pictures. This is a wonderful illustration I found online. I've credited it before so you can see, where I got my ideas. But I just basically had it on in the background or had it printed out and looking at it as I'm building these things, try to make it look just like what I'm building. Here it is in primer. And I think it looks pretty darn close. And then there it is kind of installed. So previously I was saying, this is the one lab and then there's the other lab. Here's a better look at that lab and we'll look at some more. Now, here you can see I've got stuff in there and lights are on, but you can't see anything in there. So that's when it was start, to kind of do some lighting. And what this is my light testing tool. And basically what I do is, and I showed you how to build this on one episode. But what you can do is you can take this little testing tool and you can use the light and you can put it inside the diorama to tell where you want your lights. And you can see how effective it is. And that's what this next picture is. So here I've got the tool and then there it is without the light. But then I just bring that in and there you go. That's one light in there. 9 volts, it's 9 volts knocked down to 2.8 with the resistor, but that shows you how much light one light's going to give you. And I utilize that little testing tool all around the diorama to not only tell how much light I need, quantity wise, I need 1 or 2 or 3 of these, but also to help my shadows, what's going to be seen. So at the end of this, we're going to look at some other pictures with lighting in, and you'll see what I mean, but also you're going to see where I'm trying to highlight things, really trying to bring things out of that darkness and also highlight individual things. So when you're using this little test lead with the light on the end of it, it also allows you to see or spotlight a certain item, to bring it forward. Give me just a second here. How much of this is 3D printed? This is all scratch built, and kit bash. So I'm taking stuff from kits and stuff like that. So there's actually one thing in here that is 3D printed, and it's a skull, and we'll look at it a little bit later on. It's the only thing that's 3D printed in here. Hey, it's Erdink. Hello, thank you very much for coming on, Erdink. I love to see you coming in. He was asking about this earlier this week too. So thanks very much, Erding. Nice to see you, sir. So let's go back to this. So we got some lights in there. And then I wanted to go back and even detail the books. Now, I had the question, I think it was John was asking me, how are you going to do the stuff on the spines? Well, if you look at these spines on these books, there's some differences in the spine, and gold was, a lot of stuff they would put gold leaf on there. Well, I just took this as a toothpick, and I just got real close. Can you see that it's beveled? It's kind of hard to see, but I just kind of carved it down to a flat bevel on both sides. So I just had a line, and I just took that line, dipped it in a little bit of gold paint, and kind of almost like a rubber stamp, and got it on there. I think they look great. When you get a little bit further back, a little bit of black, that's supposed to be like the writing, a little bit of the gold on there. I think they look great in the diorama. So they came out great. There is your 3D printed part, Neil. So the only thing in this whole diorama so far that is 3D printed is that skull on top of that stack of books on top of Captain Livin's desk. So this is Captain Livin's desk. He's not only concerned about building this device to help slow the war, he's also concerned about where it can be deployed. This is a real map. When I do maps, when I do anything that I put in the diorama, it's from World War I. So I just go online, I look at the maps from World War I. The National Archives has this kind of information, and it's free. You can use it. It's, sometimes it is copyrighted and you have to say where it's from, all that kind of stuff. But these are not. And it shows the line. This shows the actual World War I line. I believe this is the Somme. Mine is supposed to be Messine, but it is close enough. But, these are the kind of details that I want to bring into it. And so the little skull just reminds me of, he's not blind to the effect of what he's doing. The skull doesn't mean that he wants to kill people. I think the skull, to me, and why he's got it in his desk, is because he has to always think about the humanity of what he's creating, right? Typically, these, amazing weapons were developed in wartime, and I think in a lot of wartime, not even modern wars, but even in past wars, it is my belief, because I've heard this a few times, the weapon was developed to save lives. And I think that's my statement right there on him trying to save lives. If there's a skull right there, he is constantly reminded about what he's doing. It's not to just, do everything. It is like trying to be a metered response to end the war. And I don't want to get too deep with the stuff, but when modelers are modeling, it's usually pretty quiet. You think of a lot of stuff. You've got a lot of great references. You've got a lot of books. You get a lot of information about, these historical elements and stuff like that, and the people that did it. And, you read about their lives and things like that. I think a lot of that can come through your diorama. There's nothing wrong with that. I think you should present it in a method or a way that, you're maybe trying to bring these ideas that these people had back then forward. I think one of the things that some people get into that can be detrimental is trying to apply what we think today on the situation then and how we would respond. We didn't live then. We don't know. So you had to be there. So I'm trying to put a little bit of that in so that, there's a little bit of that understanding. Did that make sense? I go off on these tangents and sometimes they don't, but we'll see how it goes further. So after that, I started building these. More details. It's the bed on the left I did with just tissue paper was the mattress. On top of the tissue paper, I used where's my Kim wipes? I don't have them right here, but I used Kim wipes. And when that dries, when you use Mod Podge on the Kim wipe or the tissue, when it dries, it becomes rock hard. Becomes a really great surface. Still got that texture. Looks, to me at least, like fabric in scale, but it's hard as a rock. So it's a great thing for the folds and stuff like that. And I specifically went in there with white paint because it's going to be kind of in a darker area in the room. so that you can see it, so it stands out a little bit. So that's just one of the tricks in highlighting some of the things. Okay, so the other one is the little cart. This is the roller cart that they're going to be bringing from the mine face. They're bringing the dirt and the sandbags out of there. This is the paint that I put on the fuel cell, and stuff's a little, I wish I had this picture before, but this is what this thing looks all painted up and ready to go in the diorama. And again, I did a lot of highlighting. This was oils, and I'm trying to get better with oils, but when I went to painting the newer stuff, I went right back to my acrylics and my lacquers, my Tamiya lacquers. I like oils. I like doing some things with oils, but it's kind of like the last thing is what I want. I kind of went right after my base coat. I went to oils, and that was the wrong way to do it. So I'm learning, but I'm not there yet. And I think that's important. Continue learning. I don't know why I had to say that, but it's important. Okay, there is that all weathered up. And I put the ropes on it because when this thing raised up through the soil, they couldn't control some of the controls without having a rope because it was over their head. So they actually used rope to do some of the controls. One was fuel on, one was the fire that ignited it. Excuse me. These are the figures. So I started doing figures, and there's gonna be a whole lot of figures in here, but these are the three that I started with, and I want you to look at something very closely here if you can. Look at their clothing. The guy on the left, that's like in the on his belly, he's got long sleeve shirts and long pants on. The guy at the top, same deal, long sleeve shirt, long pants on. The guy on the left has shorts and short sleeves on, but he's also got socks. You see the bindings, and there's a word, there's an actual term for that, but I don't know what it is, but how they bound their legs in World War I, but that's what he's got on. So the difference here is I wanted them all in shorts. And so I modified these characters to put them all in shorts because in my mind, it's hot in there. It's in the summer that they're digging. And I just wanted to do it hot and sweaty down there, not cold and freezing. So you look here at his leg, that used to be pants. Just through using my Dremel, my roto tool, I'm able to take the pants off and then make legs and arms. I've done this before. It's something, when did I do it the first time? I did it in Wolfenstein when I was building the characters for Wolfenstein. I would take the character and modify it. This time I said, you know what I want to do is I really want to make the legs look like legs. And it's not as easy as it looks, but it's also not as hard, I guess. Get in your mind what a leg looks like. We all got one. You can look at it. I hope we all got them. You can look at your leg. You can look at a picture of a leg, and you can just remove everything that ain't supposed to be there. And that sounds so stupid. People say that, but it really is that because I am taking it down from the pants, and there's a lot of pants. If you don't have it in your mind, get a figure that does have shorts on, and because that's what I did in part of this. Is I looked at that and how, the pants stop and stuff like that. And that's what I did. And I think it worked out great. I'm really happy with how these guys came out. Here's the guy that's laying down. I mean, look at his leg. None of that existed, but I was able to even follow, that one tendon. It's actually the IT band that goes on the outside of your leg there. I was able to work that. The front of the knee, everything worked out great. Even the back leg coming back out of there. I really helped. Or I really hoped it would come out, and I was really happy with it did. Oh, good. We've got some updates. John and Eric leg binding are called putty. I just Googled it. Is it putty or putty? Putty? And Eric got the same thing. Putties, pronounced putties. There you go. So putties. That's very cool. Thanks very much, guys. Weird Ink, what will be the next diorama, Bill? I'm not 100% sure, but, my camera is going wonky. It keeps turning off when I want to talk to you guys. It might be like overheating or something like that. So, but I can still talk to you. I don't know why you're not seeing my face. My camera's just doing wonky stuff. So anyway, my next one, I'm not 100% sure. but I might go back to the Maschinenkrieger. I really enjoyed working on the Maschinenkrieger, and I just might do that. I want to do another World War One again because I get so excited about this stuff, and I've got a bunch of World War One stuff, but I might go back to MAK. But we'll look. You know, you and I might have to talk about it, Erding. That's kind of fun. So here is the other picture. And remember, I said look at his arm, and it was because the other arm had, pardon me, the other arm or the other picture of this arm had the sleeve, and you see here I've carved it away. And once you get it carved away and put a little paint on it, I think they look great. They're not fully painted yet. Their heads are really wonky. I got to put hats or hair or something, and I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm really happy with how it came out. Again, the guy on the right up high, and that's our clay kicker, he used to have socks on. Now he's got bare legs. And then the guy on the bottom, both the guys on the bottom had full pants, full sleeve shirts on, and then I got those off those. And I just love how they came out. Really happy with it. And that's how they look in the tunnel. Sleazen is here. Hello, Sleazen. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on. I just turned on my other camera. You know, I have the camera that I do the face, you know, talking to you, and it's working now, but it keeps turning off. So I think it's like heating up or something like that. So I don't know, but I'll try to keep that working. So back to the slides. After these guys got in here, I also just started putting more stuff down here. And I didn't get a good picture of this because I did a lot of work on it, but the flame and burning on the front of the flame stop, the brick flame stop, you can see it here. I did a lot of work, and I didn't put that in this group of slides just because I was trying to rip through. I mean, I got 113 slides here. We don't have to go through all of them, but yeah, I didn't get that one in. But that was a big project, getting that front to look that way. And I'm really happy with it. I think it came out really, really great. Then I needed a canary. So here's a canary in a little cage, and the canary's not in there. I put him in later, but that's the little cage, and it's super tiny. These are lanterns that I made from John. John had given me the idea to use 0.1 millimeter LEDs, and that's what these are. Up until this point, I had only done 1 millimeter LEDs, but John found these and told me about them, and had to get them, and they work great. So I made these, and I tried to show these last week on the live stream, like the demo how to do it, and it was just terrible because I didn't have the right light and things like that, or the right lens on my camera. So I'll figure that out for you. I'm sorry about that, but I am going to do I am going to basically do a video just on making these little lanterns because it's so simple, and I think everybody could really, you know, benefit from it. And then Link says, when's the last time you built a plastic car model? It has been years, Link, but the very first thing that I built on this was an armored car, but I haven't done like a car model in years. When I was a kid, I loved car models, and that was one of the things I built. I built cars. I built like destroyers. Ships were a big one. I really remember this one. And of course the Aurora kits, you know, the monster kits, built a lot of those. But yeah, cars I didn't do a lot, but the ones I did were always kind of fanciful. I did the Munsters. I loved the Munsters from the TV show The Munsters, both of those vehicles. And a friend of mine, Steve Hilby, wonderful modeler. If anybody's familiar with Wonderfest, he is like, every year he's like one of the top guys at Wonderfest, if not the top guy, because he just does these wonderful sci-fi dioramas and models. Well, he gave me the Munsters Grandpa's Dragster, which is a hearse, or no, they had the hearse, but then they also had Grandpa's Dragster, which was a coffin. They're so cool. And from my childhood. So yeah, I have those. And those are probably the next cars that I'll build, other than like the armored ones I did here. Because I do have a World War I armored car that I'd sure like to build. But I also have a Volkswagen 23 window bus. I love those. And that would be a cool cool car to build. Thanks very much, Link. It's great to see, or great to talk to you again. John says, yours was presented better. See, there you go. Presentation is big, isn't it, John? Nice one, Eric. I love the Munsters. I'd love to see your model of that car. I would, and when I built it as a kid, because there's like big windows and lots of chrome, man, I remember putting thumbprints right on the window of that thing because you pick it up like this. Just, it's tube glue. Oh, and we built on the carpet. We did not build on the table. We built on our carpet. It was bad. It was very bad. But that's like those vehicles are like the earliest memory I have of building a model is like the Munsters vehicle. The hearse, not the dragster one. I did them both, but the hearse, I think, is the first model I ever remember building. It's like I was like 5 or 6, pretty young. But I had an older brother, so that's how I got into it. My dad didn't model. He did, but we didn't model together. It was me and my brother modeling when I was growing up, and I loved it. It was just fantastic. Okay, so I am going to try to get back to our slides, and I hope the slides are going well today. I hope you guys like them because I really wanted to get some of this stuff out because I kind of missed it last time. These are another thing that I tried to do because of John Robeck was candles. I wanted to do candles, and what I used was those same 0.1 millimeter LEDs, and I used super small brass. And then I made the little lying down guy. He's holding a candle because that's a real thing. When they were mining, when they were in the mines, that's one of the things they were doing. They were mining by candlelight. One of the things I haven't shown here was part of it because I haven't figured out where the striations are and stuff like that. Is the stratification lines of different soils in France. Part of it was sometimes chalk. So it was like white and it was like really super bright. And guys would, as they're underneath there, even in candlelight, as they're digging, they would go snowblind. And snow blindness, I don't have the technicals, but basically it's too much light flooding into the eyes and you go blind for a while. I don't know that it's permanent. I do know that it can happen to a lot of people. And it happened to some of the diggers because of the white chalk that they were digging in France. So there's other colors and other stratifications to do, and I'm going to look at those. But yeah, I haven't done that yet. But they did dig by candlelight. So that's what I was trying to show here, and I'm pretty happy with it. I think it came out great. But the idea came from John. So here it is with lights now, and you see he's also got some sandbags underneath him. And there's one, you can't quite see it. You can see it in real time. He's got a sandbag he's physically filling. So there's an open sandbag there, which was not easy. Here I'm starting to work on the lights inside, putting more lights inside the entire thing. Here are lights inside the common room. And these lights are a different type. They're a different light, but also they're using a light shade, a light, like a regular lampshade. Excuse me. Let me get some water. More shots. There we go. So I was like coughing up a bunch. So that's why I turned off the sound. Sorry. So this is now with all the lights in, and you can see now kind of that placement I was talking about before. It's that placement of the lights and even the colors and even the shadows that are going to bring everything out. And that's really super important. If you're not kind of thinking about that, it's something that, and I say that because it's happened to me. If you're not thinking about where you put your lights, the kind of shadows that you're producing with those lights, you can lose some of your detail. One of the things I noticed here, and something you're going to see in a few minutes, or a couple of minutes, I swear we're getting close, is where the lights are showing me I need more detail. So these are the lanterns along the fuel. I didn't want open flames there, so I made that lanterns. Here, I start putting in some posters and some kind of personal effects and stuff like that. Some more here. Some more there. And then here is Captain Livin's lab. Now, this got very yellow. And it doesn't look so yellow when you're looking at it. It looks awfully yellow in the pictures, but it's really not that bad. So, but what you'll see in here is I've added a lot more light so you can see more of it. And the little details, I'm trying to set those details off with the shadows of the lighting. So I'm pretty happy with how these came out. Now there needs to be more in here down below. See here underneath this, I'm going to put some more tanks in there. I built them up already. I just need to paint them. But there's going to need to be a lot more detail around the baseboards. Now, this is kind of a fun shot. I just really like this. When you're looking here and you look up the stairs, at the top of the stairs inside the common room, you can see that picture, and it's this picture. And yes, she's fully clothed. It's like from 1930s. But I thought that was cute. And then here is a closer shot of the testing lab. Another shot of the testing lab. And you see the lighting is starting to make things stand out a little bit. That's important. That's really important, because if you can't see what you put in there, then you're going nowhere. Now, I did some pioneering tools just last night. This is what I did last night. And these, I mean, they're going to be doing a lot of digging. Now, remember, I said they weren't using pickaxes. It didn't mean they didn't have them. So all these are going to go in there. And then this is basically the shot that's over my shoulder right now, because that's what I'm doing. I'm building these little boxes and stuff like that of extra tools and extra little things that need to be put in here. These literally are just little wooden crates that I built, and the little wooden crates just have parts in them, and they're painted and they're glued in. They haven't been weathered yet like the other ones I did. They need a little bit of weathering, but these are going to add some real nice detail. This is going to go in the corner, and it's a barrel. Let me get there. It's a barrel with just a bunch of stuff and some pipes and tubing. It's just flotsam, really, but it makes that little lab a little bit more believable, because it looks like stuff that would be in somewhere where you're building this big machine that you don't know exactly what it is, because they're just inventing it. So we just have all these different parts. So that is where I am. Excuse me. I think it's coming along well. I'm gonna try to get this stuff off here so it just doesn't go crashing to the floor, and then I'm gonna turn this so you can have a better. I didn't really have a good picture of perspective of what the diorama looks like. So that's what I'm going to try to do now, is just show you a little bit closer the diorama so you can see it better. So here is basically the front. Here is the vertical shaft. I haven't done anything to yet, really. I mean, I built the wood structure, but it needs to be all contoured inside and, makes it look cool. This is the first subterranean level. They come in here. This is the common room. That's where all the Anzac guys are going to gather as they're digging. You can go further down. This is the testing laboratory. So this is the tunnel that goes to the testing lab. And then over here is the testing lab. The testing lab is down below here, and that's where they're testing the Livens large gallery flame projector. Above that, this is the tunnel that's being dug for what I'm going to say is the first deployment of it. I'm going to get in the picture here. So it's like the first deployment of it. So I also wanted to have kind of a like it's really critical that we get done quick. Or not quick, but there's lives, depending on this thing getting done. So there needs to be some sense of urgency, and that's part of what this tunnel is. Number one, it's showing the operation of the tunnel, which I had a diagram for, and it's built based on that. So it shows what the tunneling is, but it's also meant to show that the tunnel is already being dug, for this piece of machinery that they're inventing down here. And so in Captain Livin's office, here's his office. In this office, we're going to have Captain Livins here upstairs staring at this chalkboard over here, and in a disheveled manner, because I'll come back out a little bit, because what he's trying to do is finish, right? This was built between 6 and 9 months. This wasn't something that was like, on the shelves at the British Admiralty that they were, going to deploy, and they had scientists working on it for years. No, this is one of those devices that I'm not sure why it does say some of that in the biographies that I've read, but he had to build it now. He was given the resources, he had the idea, and so the British, military behind him said, here are the things that you need to do it, and he developed and built this thing between 6 and 9 months. And it's a pretty big thing to be able to do all this with. I mean, the kind of pressures you're talking about, there's that weird thing again. The kind of pressures that you're dealing with, all of these considerations had to be made, and to get this thing working. What I want to show is when I do his figure, and I've started his figure in here, I want that figure to show frustration. I want that figure to be really working hard to get this complete. It's a big problem that needs to be solved. Now, he solved the problem. The solution didn't end the problem, but the solution it did what he wanted it to do, and what the British Admiralty thought it would do, short of stopping the war, because the war went on for 18 months after this was deployed 4 times against the German lines. Why they stopped, I don't know that. I haven't read on that. But it was a devastating weapon when it was deployed. So that is the diorama. That is where I'm at today. Like I said at the start of this, it's been 10 weeks that I've been doing this. Pardon me. I don't know where I'm at. See, here's where it gets a little sticky. This stuff I'm doing right now, the little parts I was showing you right here, these things take forever. It's those little details that take forever. And so it's going to maybe slow down. There's not going to be like these big, I did this, and I did all this, and it's not going to be that. It's like, look, today I made 15 little pieces that are that big, but that's really, I think, what it's going to take to get the level of realism and to get across the kind of story that I want, and the emotions from the figures. There's going to be figures all over this thing. There's going to be figures down here in the testing lab, up here in the common area, and I haven't even started really on the top. When I did the top and I got all the wood in the top and the trench itself, when I got all those sandbags in and I got all that kind of stuff there, how I do stuff is I get that done, and then it's like, I'm done. I can move on. I know I got to do more, but that kind of set the stage. And so it's kind of like, if you think of it as a movie set, you go in and you put it on the furniture and you paint the walls. That's it, right? And then I come back after I've got these other things done and fill it out. So I started at the top of the diorama, and I've done this a few times in this way. I start at the top of the diorama, do the major stuff, move my way down, and then once I get to the bottom, I start detailing up. And it seems to work out pretty good that way, because one of the things that I think can happen when I'm doing this, or anybody's doing it, well, maybe it's just me, I don't know, is if I complete something, like it's just complete, and then I go to another area of the diorama and work on it, maybe they don't match. You know what I mean? They don't have the right colors. They don't have the right textures. They don't have the right things, because the time that transpired between starting and finishing this and then starting and finishing that, if I did them complete at one end, I don't know if the continuity of how they look would be right. I mean, maybe it would, but I hate trying to match stuff that I've done, right? You know, you've done something on a model, you've done something on a diorama, and then there's something you got to do it again. It's like, I just can't quite get it there. Well, for me, the way to combat that is I'll do this till it's kind of done to that point, but it's not finished. And then I do the rest, and then I work my way back up. And that seems to work awfully good. I'm not just doing this area. When I'm working on this area, I'm also, like, the Pioneer tools are going to go up here. The boxes are going to go here. I've got some new tanks and stuff, as in chemical tanks and things like that. These have not been, they've only been primed. Those are going to go in Captain Livin's lab. So I'm kind of detailing all around the diorama right now, but everything is still subterranean. I've got a lot of ideas for the top. There's barbed wire. There's more sandbags. There's people. There's going to be weapons. All kinds of stuff going up there. There's got to be a surface. There's, shaving. All of these things. And all of those things have to happen when I'm ready for it, because I'm thinking about everything down here right now, and there's a full story there, and there's a full set of circumstances that I have to basically solve for. When I get to the surface, that's going to be completely different. I'm going to have sunlight, I'm going to have weather, I'm going to have a lot of different things. There's no lighting up there. I might put some lighting inside. This is the back of the trench. Basically, this is the side facing the Germans. So you would be here, and then, like, I would be German, which, frankly, Huffman is German. So anyway, this is some, like, areas, and I'm going to have possibly some lighting in this one, possibly in here. I'm not 100% sure yet. I could do it, with the very small lights that I have, but what are they going to be doing in there? They're very small areas, but that's what they had in the tunnels. Guys would literally dig out these little areas and, like, go to sleep in it, because they had nowhere else to go. So that's the kind of thing I'm going to show here. And of course, they did have lighting and stuff like that. So anyway, that's what's next. But I'm not going to start that until I kind of get here. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. I'm kind of pulling out some of the things that I'm going to use. This is a little jig that I made years ago for making barbed wire. So that's an upcoming episode. I don't think it's going to be next week. But that's coming up. And I'll show you how to do it, and even show you how to make one, because I think it'll be a lot of fun. So, folks, it has been an hour and a half. I really enjoyed it today. I hope you did too. I so much more wanted to get some of this information through last week, but with computers and this and that and hoo-ha, whatever, it just didn't work. So I'm glad I was able to get a little bit more out this week for you. I got some comments here. Yours, got that. We talked about that one. Love the Munsters. Yep, we talked about that one. The slides are great. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. I don't know. Well, I do. Like I said, I do know what happened last week. I just messed it up. Thanks, John. From Eric. And then, so, like, one more week of work, right? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was just thinking this afternoon, be done. No, I wanted to kind of think about how far I am, right? And I thought about, all the detail and stuff, because, John Robeck, who's we're talking about right now, had this really cool idea last week he mentioned to me about maybe having something back up here. And I like the idea quite a bit, of having a scene, having, where you see, like, in the distance and stuff like that. I've never done one of those on my dioramas, but I think that would be a lot of fun. And I think it would have, I'm always looking for challenges. I like doing things I haven't done, so I can learn how to do it. And I think that would be very challenging. So yeah, I might have to do something like that, which would be another phase. So how far am I along? Maybe 50 to 60%. It looks like it's a lot further along, and maybe it is. But the things that I need to do, you just look at it. I got to finish the top. I got to finish what I'm doing now. But also, I have to put a facade around this. And by facade, what I mean is a lot of my, well, not all my dioramas, but a lot of my dioramas, I'll put a housing around it. That don't take an hour. It takes a week to build the thing that goes around it. The other thing is, here I've got scheduled, I've got a back that is like not worth anything. So I'm going to be able to do some woodworking here in the future because I can stand longer after I get this little shot. I get them every once in a while and it helps. So I've got to build a display for this because I love building displays. I haven't done displays for my last ones, not an encased display because of my back, I couldn't stand long enough, but that's going to change here in a minute or a little bit. And so I will be doing that. And so that'll be really nice to be able to do a display again and show you how I build a display. So that's coming up. So all those things together, yeah, I'm thinking maybe it's only halfway done, maybe 60%. So there's going to be a lot more stuff coming. And hopefully it's cool. I don't know. Mr. Mark says, thanks, Bill. See you soon. Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate you coming by. Neil, thanks. It's been informative. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Neil. Eric says, this has been great, Bill. Moving with you through your journey has been fun to watch. Thank you so much, sir. And I really appreciate the stuff that you're doing too. By the way, Eric is see, I almost said wrong things. He is the AMPS president for the AMPS Seattle. And so he's doing a lot of great things. I belong to 4 clubs and they're all outstanding. They all have different kind of focuses and things like that. And Eric's club is one of them. And I really, really like that because the interaction that you get with different people about different models that you might be interested in, because I have a very broad, interest in modeling. I can go to all of those and work with folks that are specialists in that area. A lot of them, do like I do. They just do whatever they want. But it's neat when you get to go to a specialist kind of group club and really get some good information and be able to participate too with other folks. I really like that. Great live video chat today. I learned everything every time. Thank you very much, Link. I appreciate that. I really want people to learn from this. It's really important that I do that. I guess when I'm building stuff and I think about the stuff that I do and the stuff that I have done to bring into it, it's kind of unique than other folks that have only been building models. Now, I will say this, for my past, because of my diverse interests, I've not done and I've not become as proficient as a lot of other modelers where they just really concentrate on that. I'm just not that proficient yet, but I'm getting there. But I also think that the stuff that I bring, gosh, there goes my camera again. I think that the stuff that I bring to it is really going to help because it's a bit diverse. And if you're just only done models, then hopefully some of the stuff that I'm bringing are new and techniques that you can adapt to modeling. And, I'm like I said, bringing something that you're going to learn and maybe something you haven't seen somewhere else before. So I got my camera back. I got to investigate what that is. I think it's a timer or it's overheating or some weirdness, but I'll figure that out for next time. So thank you very much, everybody. You've been very patient and very kind with your comments and let me figure out what the heck is going on with my camera. So thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to be posting for tomorrow, but we do have a group build this evening for my Patreon folks. John, I hope you're there, sir. And have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend. We'll see you, everybody. Bye-bye.